What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Mike Rock Uncensored. I have to make this as quick as I can simply because I got to get my daughter to Taekwondo class. And I say these kind of things out loud to tell you what's going on in my personal life simply because I want you guys to know that I am a regular person. I am not doing this for clout. I'm not doing this as clickbait. I'm not being paid to give you guys my opinion. But I do think it's very important that we as a people come together and share our opinions and bring the conversation down to earth. Everything we hear in the news and stuff right now is based on what the government or the media wants us to hear, and sometimes we have to be able to filter through the nonsense and all the BS in order to start getting to the truth. And on this particular topic, I'm not even going to claim to know. I'm not even going to claim that I know exactly what's going on. I'm just going to give you my 2 cents from everything that I've studied because I've been one or researched because I've been one that has been here from the very beginning since Biden was in office that has said as soon as I knew what was going on with the Epstein files and Epstein himself, we need to release those files. Those victims deserve justice. And in more than anything else, I am a huge advocate for kids. And when you find out how much they suffered and that the people that did this because of their riches or because of their political positions or whatever the case may be, they might actually get away with this. That's not something I'm comfortable with. I'm not comfortable with those type of people running this country. And I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian. If you're on that list and you're guilty for doing some things that you shouldn't have been doing, you need to be put in prison for the rest of your life. I honestly believe worse should happen to you. I think all of your money, everything you've ever made, should be taken away from you and either given to those victims or provided to some kind of fund to help make sure that things like this doesn't happen to future generations. However, we are where we're at now, and one of the biggest questions that people have: why did Trump turn on his promise when he campaigned to not release the Epstein files? And then why, after he exiled someone like a Marjorie Taylor Greene and a Thomas Massey who were pushing to release the Epstein files, why would he exile them, call them traitors, and then the very next day turn around and said, you know what, go ahead and release the files? A lot of Democrats, the first thing that they're going to want to say is that he's on the list. He's guilty. He participated in some of those criminal activities with minors, and that's the reason why he doesn't want the list to come out. And I'm not going to sit up here and act like I know for sure what's going on. I do believe that now that they voted to release the files, that I think Trump needs to excuse himself from the investigation altogether, and he needs to be included just to exonerate himself and to basically prove to the people that he was never guilty in the first place. And his reason for not wanting to release the files was something entirely different than what the Democrats are trying to say about this man. And I believe that that's the case. I'm going to give you a plausible theory. This is just a plausible theory. I'm not going to sit up here and act like this is the truth. I'm just saying that based on the information we have, this is what I believe could be a reason why Trump didn't want the Epstein files released in the first place. And I mean, just to get straight to the point, I think he was either, I think it was his sponsorship dollars from AIPAC that could have played a role, because a lot of this criminal activity is going to point back to, if not the Israeli government, at least to the Mossad itself, because there are some ties between Epstein and the Mossad. But in fact, let me change over my screen because you guys aren't getting the full picture. Let me see if I can. There we go. This is just showing that the files were, they voted to release the files, and I feel bad for Marjorie Taylor Greene because she's been called a traitor, and nobody is turning. It's weird because all these MAGA cult members who, as soon as Trump called her a traitor, they all basically just parroted everything that he said and called her a traitor and everything else. But part of the reason why he was calling her a traitor is because she wouldn't side with the Republicans, just like I think it was 3 other Republicans wouldn't side with the MAGA movement to say, hey, we are not going to release the Epstein files. So you call her a traitor based on in part because of this, and then the very next day after calling her a traitor, you're saying, let's go ahead and release the files. Well, let's not ignore the fact that the person you called a traitor was the one fighting to release those files in the first place. So call her a traitor first, and then, hey, let's release the files, but let's not forgive her because maybe she was right for what she was trying to push for. I don't understand that. And again, I don't believe that Trump is I don't want to believe, and I don't believe that Trump is an actual pedophile in this Epstein case. But I do think that there's another reason for why he would want those Epstein files hidden or kept away from the general public. And again, I think it's because he's either been bought, or there is some kind of influence that kept him that forced him to believe that releasing the Epstein files was going to be a very dangerous. There was going to be a very dangerous outcome as a result. And a lot of people want to believe that Trump can't be bought, or that, that there aren't other people in play to keep him from making certain political decisions. But if you guys look at Newsmax, and I wish I wish I could bring up the source. In fact, maybe I can bring up the source. No, I won't do it right now. But there's a source out there from Newsmax that says that Trump wanted to remove, I think, the Federal Reserve, the person in the position of the Federal Reserve, but he literally says it himself that other people kept him from removing that person in their position. So Trump can be influenced to make certain decisions. And it's the only thing to me that makes sense for why he would campaign. As much as Trump has been sticking to his word, you may not like what he says, but at least he sticks to his word. And I think one of the I think the craziest thing for a lot of people is, why would he campaign on the promise to release the Epstein files and then immediately reverse course? If you guys look at, let me see which one it is. You guys look right here. Trump received from AIPAC, and everybody knows the connection between, basically, call them a bridge, call them whatever you want, but basically AIPAC is the Israel representative. They spend a lot of money influencing people to support Israel and everything that Israel does. And Trump has received, and I don't know how long, maybe it was since his first and second term. I don't know how long this has been going on, but they're showing that Trump has received over $230 million from the AIPAC organization. And if AIPAC is involved with this Epstein case as much as a lot of people believe they are, then it would make sense that Trump could be convinced that, hey, we support you this way, we can help you get a lot of other things done, but we need you to get rid of this. We need you to get rid of what's going on in the Epstein files. I'm going to tell you why this makes sense to me. A lot of people say, no, there's no way. But I'm going to tell you why this makes sense to me. The Democrats, knowing that they are guilty of a lot. They have a lot of participants on this Epstein file, and they're showing it over and over and over again. Not to say that there aren't other parties involved, but there really haven't been any names over however long this Epstein file case has been released. There haven't been any Republican names that have been named, other than the fact that people are hating on Trump so bad that they need him to be guilty of something regarding Epstein. That's it. They need him because no evidence, not the emails. I mean, what was it? The email basically said that there's some very bad people in the world and Trump is the worst of them all, and there's not a decent cell in his body. And a lot of people took that to mean, well, yeah, that was him messing with the girls. No, it wasn't. If Epstein hated this man, if Epstein hated this man, how do you put together that him and Trump were actually in collusion with what's going on with these minor-aged girls? There's a reason Epstein was afraid that Trump was an informant, which they found out he was an FBI informant and was part of the reason that helped them finally arrest Jeffrey Epstein. But they wanted you to believe that. And then they tried to say that there was a victim, a redacted victim that Trump spent hours with at Epstein's house. Well, the reason why the Democrats put redacted victim is because we later find out that it was Virginia Jeffrey. Virginia Jeffrey, for those of you who don't know, was one of the victims who came out and literally said Trump never did anything to her. But by putting redacted victim, you don't know who they're referring to, so you can easily believe that Trump could have done something being up in this house with this victim for several hours. These are the games that Democrats play. And unfortunately, I do feel like the MAGA cult is starting to play some similar games as well. Not with Epstein, but with a lot of other things that they're doing. Like, for instance, why people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson are currently being censored and canceled because of the things that they have to say. They're being labeled as crazy. They're, nothing they say makes sense, and it's simply because they're speaking out and against the country, the government of Israel, or Bibi Netanyahu himself, and not siding with and being sheep of the MAGA movement. So they have to cancel them. They're basically just liberals all over again. But back to this whole situation. So the reason why to me this makes sense, the logical question that people would have is, if the Democrats don't believe that they're as guilty as they are, were they the ones that all of a sudden said, "Hey, let's push the Epstein files"? Well, again, if my theory is correct, then the reason why they would do that is because they knew Trump was going to fight against it, because they knew that there was an external force that was preventing him from releasing those files. They were doing it because they felt like he wouldn't do it no matter what. And then by him coming out and saying, he basically said, fuck it, release the files. Now all of a sudden they're in a panic. Now all of a sudden we find out that this person, what's her name? Stacey Plaskett? This lady right here. Now we find out that while she was in a hearing regarding Epstein, Epstein was texting her and giving her questions to ask. I think at the time it was Michael Cohen, but giving her questions. He was leading her into questions about a person she knew nothing about. So now there's names coming out. They're trying to say that Jeffries might have been implicated in some of these emails. We know Bill Clinton and his wife somehow are implicated or guilty of something. They actually just refused to they refused the subpoenas that were given to them to testify about this investigation. But I really believe, like this, to me, as of right now, I really believe that this is the most plausible theory, and the only reason why. And I also believe that the reason why Trump reversed course all of a sudden is, I just think that I want to believe. Again, I'm not saying I'm correct, but I want to believe that Trump just sat there and basically said, like he always does, nobody is going to control me. I don't care how much money you give me. I don't care. I just don't care. You're not going to control me. And if you guys think that your money is going to be enough for me to alienate myself from the people, he may have started to do it, but I think he had a moment to reflect and basically just said, fuck it. Fuck it. It's coming out one way or another. I have no more control over it. They may have been influenced, and let me correct myself. I think being bought by AIPAC is a very strong way a strong way of trying to suggest a reason why Trump wouldn't want the Epstein files released. It could have just been some kind of political influence, some kind of art of the deal that he loves to play a game with. I'm just saying that there's a reason out there. There's some kind of influence. I think it's an influence out there other than he's guilty of a crime for why he chose not to release the Epstein files, or chose not to want to release the Epstein files. That's just, I think when all is said and done, that's the conclusion that we're all going to draw. I know that the FBI or House Speaker Johnson, one of them is basically saying that the reason why they didn't want to release the Epstein files was because there was grand jury testimony from New York that they wanted to have released. But if it wasn't going to get released at the same time as the files, then a lot of things they weren't going to be able to connect the dots in a lot of areas and start going after people that they needed to go after. And again, the problem that I have with that, and this is the thing that we should always be allowed to do, we need to be thinkers for ourselves. I'm not here speaking to influence anybody. I'm going to tell you, instead of telling you to hate on a person and not listen to what they have to say, I'm going to tell you to listen to them. Let's bring the discussion back to the table, and let's see if we can't make sense of everything. Maybe I'm wrong about something, and I've been wrong before. But the reason why we're always wrong, or we're always having to guesstimate the problem that we have before us, is because we don't have enough transparency in our government. We have to nitpick through the information that's given to us from the government and through the media, and we have to piece those things together ourselves and try to come up with a logical conclusion for what's going on, and hopefully get to some kind of solution in the end. I don't pretend to be an eloquent speaker. In fact, I think that's Trump's biggest problem, is that he's not. He's an intelligent human being, but he's not an eloquent speaker. And this whole thing about the hoax, I don't understand why people they can't comprehend what he is actually trying to say. They're thinking that he's saying that the whole Epstein Files situation is a hoax, and I don't think Trump believes that the victims are fake. I know he knows that something real happened to them, and that's what soured his relationship with Epstein in the first place. He knows that the situation is real. But what the Democrats are doing to him, or trying to do to him, that is the hoax. The Democrats and their play on the Epstein Files itself, that is the hoax. And I believe if they just sit down and stop trying to accuse the man and start asking him real questions, I think that they will be quick to find out that that's exactly what he meant. Now, again, this is just a plausible explanation for why he wouldn't want to release those files. But now that he's reversed course and he's basically said, vote to release the files, and as soon as it hits my desk, I'm going to sign it so that we can get them released. There's still some questions there. Like, it's why didn't you want those released in the first place, which is what we've been talking about. Do you owe Marjorie Taylor Greene an apology if you reverse course, since that seems to be the reason why you want to call her a traitor and stuff in the first place? And then as far as she goes, now they want to sit up here and make her look like the villain and say, well, why would you go on CNN if you were a true Republican? You're just a rhino. Let me tell you why, in case people are wondering why, have questions for why she would go to a place like The View or CNN. It's because once the MAGA cult movement decided to label her a traitor, they removed her ability to get on any of the right-wing platforms. She couldn't let her voice be heard, and that wasn't good enough for her. She's saying, if you guys don't want to hear what I have to say, I'm going to go wherever I need to go so that I can speak my truth. That's what she was doing. MAGA wasn't going to let her speak. And right now, and I have no problem speaking out against, anything right versus wrong as opposed to right versus left. I've always said that, and it's kind of what's made me decide that I am a conservative in my ideals, but I am not necessarily a Republican. If being a Republican, or I'm definitely not MAGA. But if being a Republican means that I have to side with every last thing that they have to do in order for me to say that I'm a Republican, if we can't debate and discuss facts, if I can't believe in the truth and use that to support my arguments, whether I'm right or wrong, my truth is my truth, and there has to be a reason for it. My intentions are good. And if that's not enough for me to say that I'm a Republican, then I guess I'm not Republican. That doesn't mean I'm a rhino. It doesn't mean I'm looking to side with Democrats. And I'm tired of this all or nothing mentality that the liberals once had, and now what I call the new liberal movement, which is the MAGA cult, not the moderates, but the extremists. The moderates are the ones who want Trump to succeed, who believe that in the end he is doing better for this country, but that doesn't mean that they're going to agree with everything that he's doing. This whole thing with EBT, we're going to get into other videos later. All I wanted to do right now before I take my daughter to Taekwondo is to basically say that open up your minds, whether you're on the left or the right. If you're a moderate and you want real answers to what's going on, just take the information that you have. There's a lot of it out there that will basically help you or lead you in the right direction if you're willing to listen to both sides. Listen to what's going. Democrats have done nothing but lie to you. There's been lie after lie after lie. And at first, and just to give you an example, this idiot, I rarely call people an idiot. I try to attack the facts and not the person themselves. But there's this person who's really getting on my nerves. Ed Christensen and his brother, I forgot what his brother's name, Doug, Frank. I don't give a shit. These guys are idiots. Number one, if you check them out, they want to talk bad about Trump and all of this, Epstein this and Epstein that. But if you really look them up, they own domains that belonged to sites. I mean, they weren't sites. They owned domains that basically were connected to or related to some kind of teen pornography type stuff. They were also guilty of being involved with something that had to do with a Ponzi scheme in it. And there was some, I don't know the details behind it, but these are not nice individuals, and a little bit of homework. Well, in fact, it's stuff that they've copped to and basically said, oh, yeah, well, we're guilty of this, but we're not guilty of that. That there's a reasonable explanation for why we're idiots and why we are who we are. But in this one right here, this is right after they decided to vote on to release the Epstein Files. Now all of a sudden is holy crap. Mark Epstein, Jeffrey's brother, just said Republicans are scrubbing the Epstein Files. Basically, they're going to remove all of the Republican names. Dude, how many different excuses? How many times are you can just let the Democrats lie to you before you say, you know what? I'm calling bullshit. I'm just going to go ahead and call the bullshit, because they will, again, this is their pattern. This is how they make things work. They will lie to you to get what they want. And they will perpetuate that lie all the way up until they get caught, because by the time they get caught, guess what happens? Either the statute of limitations expires so that you can't bring them to court, or it's just old news and let's move on. Nancy Pelosi used to say that over and over and over again. Once she got caught up in something, let's move on. That's old news. We need to focus on the here and now. No, we do not. We need to bring up the past because it's impacting how we move forward in the future. When you are that wrong and that guilty about some things, it needs to be exposed so that people understand that every word that comes out of your mouth is a lie. And guess what? As soon as you get exposed for that lie, and you're just going to move on to the next. Oh, let's release the Epstein Files. Trump is in it. And now that they're about to release the Epstein Files, their sources have it that they're scrubbing the Epstein Files and they're going to remove all the Republican names. I honestly believe that there's some Republicans that are guilty of this as well. I just don't think it's Trump. They need Trump to be guilty. And then for all you MAGA cult members that don't like the fact that I'm calling you MAGA cult members, not one time in this speech, other than the fact that I think that AIPAC money that Trump received may have been a part of the influence that kept him from wanting to release the Epstein Files in the first place, I never once talked bad about the man himself. I want him to succeed. I just think that you guys need to stop being the next liberal or the Democrats 2.0, where you guys want to censor information and cancel people because they're saying things that you don't like. At the end of the day, I remember before Republicans got into power, and it wasn't that long ago, just less than a year ago. I remember when you guys were fighting on the side of right. I remember when you were fighting for free speech, freedom of expression, and you were fighting for people to be able to share their opinion and say what needed to be said because you had truth on your side. Let's talk about the facts. Stop assassinating the character and let's get down to business. But all of a sudden, you guys are in power now. And now everything that Trump says, whether he's right or wrong, and he's been wrong a couple times, more than once, more than a few. But all of a sudden, you guys want to everything he says is God. And anybody that says differently is a traitor. They're no longer MAGA. They're rhinos. You don't want anybody to listen to what they have to say because they're speaking out against Trump, or they're speaking out against Israel, or they believe that there's something fishy going on with the Charlie Kirk assassination. They don't want you to hear the information. And why would they do that? If truth is on their side, it shouldn't matter what anybody says. If I said something that's controversial, guess what? You're entitled to your opinion, but let me tell you why you're wrong. Experts should be able to do that, not turn around and assassinate your character just because they can't debate the facts. Candace Owens is bringing receipts. Tucker Carlson is bringing receipts. Marjorie Taylor Greene, call her crazy all you want to, but she is bringing receipts. So you guys can debate that all you guys want to, and I'm not even speaking to the MAGA cult members. I'm speaking to everyone else, the moderates, the people who want real answers and aren't willing to just side with everything somebody has to say just because they are a part of the MAGA movement. That all of that needs to stop. All of it needs to go away. I'm hoping that everybody responsible for victimizing these young girls regarding the Epstein files and even the Diddy situation, I'm hoping all of them are their lives are ruined as a result. That's all I'm going to say, because if I like I said, I'm a huge advocate for kids, and I don't want to say out loud and have this video banned for what I really believe needs to happen to those people who think it's okay to victimize these young girls, do things to them, and then get away with it, and then also continue to run our country, kill people all. Well, I don't. Let me stop. Let me stop. Anyways, man, I want to know your thoughts, man. I want to know what you think. Is what I'm saying plausible? Do you have a different explanation other than the fact that Trump is guilty? Do you have another explanation for why Trump would not want the Epstein files released? Why he was so adamant about it and so committed to not releasing the files that he was willing to call Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene a traitor for disagreeing with him, and then reversing course the very next day after he removed his endorsement from Marjorie Taylor Greene? I want to know. The people want to know. Like and follow the video. Leave your comment where it needs to go. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. I'm Mike Rock. Peace.